The distress signal drifted across the void long before anyone understood its importance. It was faint and fractured, built from fragments of desperate voices and the cold hum of a collapsing civilization. Yet the moment it reached the edge of the Sol network, every listening station on the outer ring fell silent. The call for help was unlike anything humans had heard since they first stepped into the wider galaxy. Its cadence trembled with fear and finality. Its tone carried the heavy certainty that the senders expected no answer. But humanity had been shaped by storms, disasters, extinctions, and hardships crafted by their own hostile world. They understood desperation. They understood survival. And they never ignored a cry for help. The message was decoded at the Terra relay hub by a small team working the late shift. Among them was a systems analyst named Kira. She leaned over her console as the last phrase of the transmission resolved into audible sound. The voice came from someone young, someone struggling to stay composed even as catastrophe swallowed their home. The phrase echoed through the room with a weight that silenced every breath. The speaker said that invaders had broken through every line of defense. They said that their people were being crushed. They said they had resisted as long as possible, but could hold no longer. They begged for anyone to hear them. They begged for someone strong enough to stand against the aggressors. They begged for Earth. Kira shared the recording with command authorities. Within minutes, the Emergency Response Council was summoned. Within an hour, the United Planetary Forces Fleet Command was awake and reviewing the data. Humanity had always been watched with wary eyes by the greater galactic community due to their nature as Deathworlders, a species raised by a planet that seemed determined to destroy them. Others saw them as volatile and dangerous. Humans saw themselves as resilient and duty-bound. So when the signal asked specifically for Earth, it ignited something fierce within the council chambers. It was not pride. It was not ego. It was protective fury. The sender's location was traced to a region far beyond regulated space, on a small world designated Tellurian. It housed a gentle civilization known for art and diplomacy, not war. Their gentle nature made them vulnerable to conquest by any force willing to strike without hesitation. The invaders were not named in the message. The transmission ended before they could be identified. That unknown added fuel to the Council's anger. The possibility that someone had attacked a peaceful world, had terrorized civilians, had tried to extinguish a voice that reached out to humanity, was enough to rouse Earth's armies into action. The Sol fleet assembled with remarkable speed. The call to arms spread across every colony. Sleepers in cryogenic chambers were awakened. Reserve pilots were summoned. Ground forces were mobilized. Ships that had not launched in decades rolled out from orbital docks. At the heart of the gathering storm stood Admiral Titus. He was known for his calm command and strategic brilliance. He understood the rage surging through the ranks. He felt it too. He directed it with precision. Every soldier knew the truth. Earth was not loved by many in the galaxy. They were tolerated. They were respected. They were feared. But they had earned a reputation for answering pleas for help. When they fought to end suffering. When they acted with overwhelming resolve. This mission was not one of conquest. It was a mission of retribution. As the fleet departed, the people of Earth watched from cities, stations, and orbital habitats. Families stood in plazas and rooftops. Children pressed their faces against the windows of observation decks. Veterans saluted as the Titanic warships maneuvered into position. There was no celebration. There was solemn determination. No one wanted war, but everyone wanted justice. The journey to Tellurian took the fleet through uncharted space. The ships relied on new jump drives, capable of tearing through folded dimensions. Each transition felt like diving into a storm of shadow and light. But the fleet endured. They had endured worse on their homeworld. Finally, they emerged into a dim system surrounded by debris and the remnants of once beautiful orbital structures. The sight tightened every jaw on the command decks. Tellurian hung below them like a wounded jewel. Fires burned across its continents. Entire regions had been scarred by bombardment. The invaders were still present. Their fleet hovered around the planet in a predatory formation. Sleek black vessels patrolled its perimeter. Their architecture was cold and angular, shaped with cruel precision. Admiral Titus ordered the fleet to maintain silence. He wanted to observe the enemy before striking. He had no interest in diplomacy with forces that had shown none. Sensors captured the enemy broadcasts. Their ships communicated in a language filled with sharp tones and clipped commands. They had no intention of negotiating. Their focus was on extraction, subjugation, and control. A small team was sent to scout the surface. Among them was Captain Rowan, a ground commander known for his calm resolve. He led his squad through burning forests, shattered cities, and ruined plazas. The soldiers wore armored suits lined with shielding that glowed faintly with blue circuitry. They moved like shadows through the devastation. They found survivors hiding in underground bunkers. The Tellurian people were fragile and graceful, with luminous eyes and soft features. They trembled when they saw humans, not because they feared them, but because they had hoped for them. One survivor, a teacher named Lonnie, stepped forward and spoke with trembling gratitude. She explained that the invaders called themselves the Draxel. They believed the Tellurian civilization would not resist. They believed no one would come to their aid. They believed Earth would never hear the transmission. Rowan listened. He felt the anger in his squad rising, but he kept his voice steady. He told Lonnie they were not alone. He told them the full might of Earth stood above them. He told them that the Draxel had made a fatal mistake. The scouting team returned to the fleet with detailed reports. Admiral Titus reviewed the data and made his decision. The Draxel would receive no warning. They would receive no negotiations. They would receive only the consequences of their actions. When the attack began, it was swift and ruthless in its precision. Earth's warships cut through the enemy formation with focused strikes designed to disable rather than annihilate. They targeted propulsion systems, weapon arrays, and command nodes. The Draxel reacted with confusion at first, then with panic as the Deathworlders pressed forward. The humans moved with purpose. Their ships were built to withstand conditions that would crush vessels of other species. The shock waves of enemy weapons washed over their hulls like wind over mountains. Their counterfire tore through enemy lines, carving corridors of space that opened paths for ground forces to descend. Rowan's unit was among the first. Land on the surface once the orbital blockade was shattered. They moved through ruined streets with coordinated efficiency. The Draxel ground troops attempted to regroup. They underestimated the endurance of human soldiers. They underestimated their agility. They underestimated their rage. The soldiers of Earth fought without hesitation. Every motion was calculated. Every shot was deliberate. They knew whom they were fighting for. They fought for the children they had found hiding beneath collapsed buildings. They fought for the elders who clutched to darted artifacts as their homes burned. They fought for the voice in the transmission that had begged for someone to listen. The Draxel attempted to retreat toward their central command base. Admiral Titus saw this on his tactical map and deployed an interception strike. Bombers streaked through the atmosphere. Their engines thundered. Their payloads shattered the ground control structures the Draxel relied upon. Escape was no longer possible. As human forces advanced, they reached the heart of the enemy's operations. Rowan's team infiltrated the command center. The final resistance broke under their push. When Rowan entered the central chamber, he found the recording terminal that had captured the distress message. Dust coated its surface. The device was silent. The one who had recorded the plea had not survived. Rowan placed a hand on the terminal. His squad stood behind him in solemn silence. Their anger softened into sorrow. They had avenged the sender, but they had not saved them. That truth weighed heavily on them. Admiral Titus met with Tellurian leaders in the aftermath of the victory. The survivors emerged from their shelters. They stood beneath the sky, free for the first time since the invasion began. The Admiral promised them aid. He promised reconstruction support. He promised long-term protection. The Tellurian people wept. They bowed their heads. They thanked him not with ceremonial words, but with trembling voices filled with genuine gratitude. In the days that followed, human engineers helped rebuild critical infrastructure. Medics treated the wounded. Soldiers assisted in clearing debris. They worked tirelessly. They felt the presence of the lost in every ruined structure. They honored them through action. When the fleet prepared to depart, Lonnie met Rowan at the landing zone. She handed him a small crystal sphere. Inside it shimmered the faint recording of ancient Tellurian songs. She said it was a gift from their world. She said it was a reminder that even in darkness, voices could reach beyond the stars. Rowan accepted it with reverence. He said humanity would always listen. He said they would always respond. As the Soul Fleet left Tellurian, the people of E